Always a pleasure to welcome Katie Glueck to the program, reporter for Politico.com. She has been watching this fight back and forth between Senators Cruz and Senator Paul, both trying to out-Reagan each other.
You want to talk about the most effective diplomacy this nation has seen in modern times? I would suggest it was Ronald Reagan standing up and winning the Cold War without firing a shot, and that was done through strength.
All right, Senator Cruz, I'll see you Reagan and raise you a Gipper.
I think that Reagan really exemplified peace through strength, but I think some of the neoconservatives up here interpret that as war through strength, that war is always the option, that we always have to be involved. But consequently, they get caught up in a lot of contradictions.
Katie joins us now on our Turnkey.pro answer line. Katie, is this to be expected in a party that is vying for leadership here and both guys going for the same spotlight?
Hey, well, thanks so much for having me. It's certainly an interesting kind of discussion to see playing out. Both Senator Paul and Senator Cruz are beloved by at least some corners of the grassroots. They're often kind of both discussed as Tea Party darlings, but we've really kind of seen the contrast between the two of them thrown into kind of sharper relief on the question of foreign policy over the last week or so. They've sort of both ramped up their discussion and their interpretation of kind of where they are on foreign policy, and both have sort of taken what could be seen as swipes at each other on this issue, which is of course very interesting because both are thought to be weighing pretty heavily presidential bids for 2016.
Does this concern any other Republicans, senior Republicans, either on the Senate side or the House side, or even guys like Jim DeMint? They don't like to see this sort of intra-party fighting?
It does sort of speak to a larger question about where the party is on foreign policy. I mean, you've seen the country as a whole increasingly move away from the sense that America kind of sort of move away from support for America being particularly interventionist, which stands in contrast to kind of where things were a couple of years ago. That shift has been evident within the Republican Party as well. But of course, historically, the GOP is known for, supporting a very, strong active defense and at least a vocal slice of the party has sort of long advocated for being kind of a force for democracy in the world. And so, you do sort of see some shifts, at least from the grassroots of the party, and Senator Paul certainly speaks to that sort of move. And it sort of all kind of speaks to this larger debate that we kind of see playing out, but we haven't seen happen at the very top levels of the party just yet.
So, Katie, help me out here. When Senator Cruz says that he takes the Reagan foreign policy mantle, what does that mean exactly?
It's really interesting. Senator Cruz, actually for a while now, has been sort of summing up the Republican foreign policy spectrum by saying that you have Senator McCain on one side, Senator Paul on the other side, and then he says I take what I would like to think of as a Reagan approach, which is the third way. So really, he himself has kind of put Paul out to one side, which is something that Senator Paul has pushed back on. And actually, Senator Paul yesterday wrote an op-ed sort of saying that, everyone is trying to claim the Reagan mantle, but sometimes that does get misinterpreted. And that was kind of viewed as taking a swipe at Senator Cruz as well. But, Senator Cruz often talks about this in the context of saying that Reagan, wasn't trying to be involved everywhere, but at the same time tried to use America as a force for good, when it comes to things like the Cold War.
Well, Reagan moved when he had to move, some more of consequence than others. But, when you look back at Ronald Reagan and how he moved not only foreign policy-wise, but his stance on a lot of social issues, he would have some difficulties in today's Republican Party in a primary sort of situation with the social issues and domestic policy. Some of his things he did as a governor of California, not so well accepted nowadays. But foreign policy-wise, he certainly won the big fight, no matter what kind of you want to talk about his tactics, you want to have an argument about his strategies, but he brought down, at least in part, the Soviet Union. So both guys can claim victory, correct?
It's interesting. You kind of always see Republicans kind of vying for that Reagan mantle. And actually, as Paul noted in his op-ed yesterday, there's kind of a lot of questions about what what that legacy sort of did or didn't stand for in terms of the way that it's being interpreted by politicians now. So, it's very interesting, and that I think that as we go forward, we're going to continue to see more people saying, I'm the guy or a woman most in line with President Reagan on this issue. But it's certainly something that's playing out very early, but definitely noteworthy, because these are two candidates who, if they both run in 2016, are going to be vying for similar segments of the base for sure.
Did you enjoy CPAC this year?
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Were you able to catch most of it?
I saw some of it. I saw Sarah Palin reciting Dr. Seuss. How did the crowd react to that, by the way?
It was a crowd that's quite friendly to her,
Yeah.
for sure. So that went over well. And there were a number of interesting moments. Governor Christie appeared. He wasn't even invited last year, but got a very warm reception this year. And Governor Perry actually gave a speech that really brought down the House, which was interesting, because he's actually also looking at perhaps another presidential bid.
He is a sleeper. Everybody's talking about Paul. Everybody's talking about Cruz, talking about some governors out there, Christie, of course. But the sleeper, I think, a guy who's tan, rested, ready, and off his meds. Watch out. I think Rick Perry's got a lot of his ducks in a row.
And he is really not at all trying to quash speculation about his next steps. He's the longest-serving governor in Texas history, and he's not running for re-election this year. When you ask him about whether he's going to run for president, it's certainly not something that he rules out. So, that would be another interesting one to watch.
Katie Glueck, thank you, as always, for your analysis. We read you at Politico.com. We'll have you back soon, okay?
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
Katie joined us on our Turnkey.Pro answer line.